Hey guys, it's Saru, and if you've been here before on this channel, then you know I don't really watch anime or play anime games. They're just not really my thing. So for me to watch anime, it takes a lot of willpower and being able to focus on something, and I realize that's probably strange given the fact that most people see me here and they think I'm an anime character for some reason, but alas, I am not. However, I got a chance to try out the upcoming Piece Odyssey game with its newest demo that released this week, and I wanted to share my thoughts with you guys about it and see what it's all about. Now, before I actually start this video, this is an added note. I did not realize that the game was coming out literally yesterday or today, so the demo review is not really going to cover everything about the game, but after getting to play a little bit of it, I think this kind of applies to the whole game in general, so hopefully that will help you guys anyways. So, let's get right into it. So to be clear, I have watched some anime, one of which includes One Piece actually, but that wasn't without its troubles because the first time I tried watching it, I really couldn't get past the first few episodes. I just found them incredibly uninteresting, visuals aside. Still, one summer I had nothing to do, I think this was probably 2015 or 16, and I figured I'd give it another try. My thoughts on it was kind of like this was basically the scenario. It was like this. Listen Saru, this anime has been going on since the wheel was invented, so maybe it's worth it. Maybe it's not. Let's find out together. 863 episodes later, I was a fan, enough so to watch the movies, but never actually playing any of the One Piece games that exist or reading the mangas. It's already hard enough as it is for me to watch anime. Then came October 2019, after a year of hinting to the old ball and chain, to give the anime a try, and once more I watched it from the beginning. So now 1040-ish episodes later, I'm going to be playing my very first One Piece game, so let's see what it's all about. Now, starting the game, I didn't realize that this game's story was an original story by Oda, who has written the overall story for One Piece itself. That's pretty awesome since I don't often see that when it comes to anime games at least, the original creators that created this are the ones that wrote the entire story and stuff. Usually they're producers or something. So I was already interested to see where the story was going to go, given how I've watched every episode of the show so far. Now the ship crashes at a mysterious island where we're all stranded. The first thing I noticed, again, maybe this is a normal thing in other One Piece games, I have no idea, zero clue, though having played some Dragon Ball Z games in the past, like when I was much younger, it's likely that it's kind of the same. But I did notice that the cutscenes were fully dubbed, at least in Japanese. I've never actually watched One Piece in English, I don't think I ever would, but it felt like it was truly a part of the anime or its own movie or something and kept you in suspense much like the show actually does. Starting the game, you get to see the wreckage and you're now in some weird island and the Sunny, which is the boat, is sinking. A little lady picks up the straw hat which belongs to Luffy, and we also see that some people are missing, those being Nami, Brook, and Zoro is going to be an obvious choice for me in the beginning since he gets lost even walking in a straight line. But I could tell that the first goal was going to be to find the crew, or at least the rest of them, and look for the hat. And I was not wrong, that is exactly what happened. Gameplay itself was interesting enough, but I had to adjust myself since the playstyle was not something I was necessarily used to just yet. I noticed the graphics were pretty damn good. I mean, given that this is a realistic approach, I guess, sort of, as I can imagine a One Piece game being, so I'm not really sure how that Netflix adaptation is going to be like, but yeah. I loved a lot of the shaders that were used on the game, but I must admit that Luffy for some parts of this felt really weird visually. Maybe it was the fact that he didn't have the straw hat at the beginning and every time he doesn't, it kind of looks a little weird. But there's something about his face that just felt a little, I don't know, off-putting. But again, it could have been just because he did not have the hat, so I don't know, I just felt all types of strange because of that. So after talking to the crew, we all gathered by a cave that Choppa found and we went off exploring. Walking around was weird and a little restrictive where certain zones were cut off from you being able to touch them. My brain kind of just went to the fact that if Luffy touches the ocean water, he'll just fall apart. But I'm pretty sure that actually wasn't the case, and they're just kind to give you that old style, you know, don't go over here. You're kind of locked off from doing so. And I guess that comes now from being exposed to games that everything's kind of open world-ish. So I was learning how to walk around, run, use abilities to traverse, and that took a few minutes, to be perfectly honest, to get used to. And I was surprised to find that I would be able to find items around the world to use for things like HP, temporary boost, and stuff like that. Now I was introduced to the combat early on to fight some ugly monkeys known as Aiza, which taught me basics on how the combat would work. Now I found it cool that if you use your special skills, you're not necessarily restricted, like you're out of mana or whatever, like sometimes it does with games like Pokemon, but instead you can regenerate your TP or tension points by simply attacking normally without any skills. These points work across all fights, so if you were to have, let's say, 500 points, and then somehow you obtain a total of 750, in your next fight you'd beat 750. Of course, these points points can decrease depending on the amount of skills you use or what skills you use, which are detailed in the skill sections themselves once you are in a fight. So as we went around to save Nami from a gorilla, which reminded me of an arc in Gintama, I learned that some battles will have some conditional effects that can allow you to get some extra rewards, such as extra XP, by doing it that way. For example, here the condition was to defeat the enemies before Usopp faints. The combat at first, just so I'm being clear, at first, I wasn't thrilled by it. I found it a bit uninteresting, but that comes now from being used to games that are like, you know, hack and slash and action combat. So it really took me a moment to get back into that whole thing. And the more I experienced and the more fights I went into, I really found a nice thrill from it for some reason, which brought me back to a time where I played a lot of games that used very similar tactic combat strategies. Upon reaching Nami, I learned that some enemies have different elements. For example, this will show you the attack types of like technique, power, or speed, which all have their power counters, where if you have a technique based character, it is stronger than a power based character, power is stronger than speed, and speed is stronger than technique. So you'd have to be able to identify this quickly by seeing an enemy with their attribute, and then kind of whether the arrow is up or down, kind of signifying how effective they're going to be against you. Unlike other games, I like that you could switch out crew members without sacrificing a turn really, and I also found it really cool that if, for example, a preferred character that you have somewhere is fighting elsewhere on the battlefield, they can fight that monster, let's say, and then once they're done, they can come back to where the rest of the crew is, basically. But yeah, I thought that was really cool, actually. But after reaching Nami and checking out the personification of all my haters in game, I got to learn about items such as energy apples, which are easy to find around the game and can heal crew members if you need to. Fighting this big baddie was interesting because even though I was able to just go ham on him, after defeating him, we all lost our powers because the weird girl that took Luffy's hat decided to go against COVID protocols and didn't give us our space, so she touched all of us and we lost our powers and strength. This was of course one of the plots in the game now, to recover your full powers of each character and stuff like that. So as the character's powers became cubes and ran away to Vegas, the big boy that I had just defeated with the power of friendship came back to life, and it mostly showed me that all the characters are now weak, so we're all beating on him, but it's practically not doing anything at this point. It's just kind of a scene to show us that yeah, we're not doing anything to this dude, so we should probably run away. So everybody that had powers, for example, has forgotten how to use their skills or their own strengths. Out of the blue, we meet a character that seems like a fan of Yamcha, and he saves me and the team. I came to learn that the big fella that we had fought was the Guardian of the Island, which means if we had beat him up and the girl wasn't there, there'd be no Guardian. If there was no Guardian, the island would be unprotected, and if the island was unprotected, that means we could easily leave. Hat girl confirmed bad guy. At this point in time, I had learned that this fellow was called Adio, and he had been on this island for a few years after being washed up ashore because his ship went kaboom, as well, I guess, and that he was staying with a girl called Lim, who is the hat girl, by the way, and she explained that she saw that we were pirates, so she kind of wanted to put an end to that because the general population thinks that pirates are bad, which is a fair assumption, so she decided to kind of caress us all carefully and we all lost our powers. This is just kind of a power that she has for reasons unexplained, probably explained sometime during the game itself. She explained that we could get our powers and strength back by simply finding the cubes and putting them inside us, which the problem with that was she didn't really specify inside of what, so that was a little open-ended. So Adio made us food and wanted to take us to a cave of wonders where here we could find some clues and stuff, and I did find it weird that I couldn't really go outside of certain zones at this point. So for example, right here I had to speak with him so he could take us there, but even though he's going to take me to a certain area, if I get too far away from him, he says, "Hey, where are you going, brother?" And then he just kind of teleports us back, so that stunk a little in the freedom department. But anyways, I spoke with him and he took me to the cave and joined the team temporarily. Here I got to learn that if I touch monsters first before they touch me, my team will get a critical hit bonus on the first hit attack that I do. This was really useful information just in case I decided to find random creatures that inhabited this island that I had randomly appeared in and was a guest in, and figured I should probably decimate an entire species. After this, Zoro thought that he saw some chickens of the sea, even though clearly they are goats. And into the cave I went, but at this point Adio said adios, and I started to go around the cave. I had learned about the equipment systems where I could find different badges or accessories that I can place upon myself. So these increase stats, which can be freely changed upon to other characters or to yourself. So if you decide to kind of change it up at some point, you can do so with no loss. Soon after, I met Pikachu's ugly cousin, and after beating him up with some basic attacks because I have nothing, like we have no skills here, which honestly seems to be more than enough because the characters will still be strong enough to just punch somebody out just with one hit, I guess. With one punch, with one piece. Damn, that sounded better in my head. But I did see that some skills could cause for enemies to be knocked back, even some normal attacks actually. So if they get knocked back and they have a nearby enemy, there is a chance that they could crash into that nearby enemy and share the damage. So I find that pretty neat because if you did a critical hit on an enemy, you can share that critical hit with the monster that original monster is being crashed into. So afterwards, I found a cube that just so happened to be Luffy's, and I realized that putting it inside me just kind of meant it will magically go inside of me. Well, one of the characters at least. So Luffy recovered some of the skills, and I found that this was almost like a skill tree at this point. So the more that you find of these cubes for the particular characters, because they will be named like Luffy's cube or Nami's cube or Robin's cube or whatever, the more you can upgrade a skill. This particular cube let everyone remember their skill somehow, and Luffy received additional points to be put into particular skills. Now, even though I was tasked with going back to the entrance, I really wanted to explore a bit more, and I had noticed some cubes around the area, so I decided to just make an adventure out of it. I beat up more and more Pikachu cousins and pretty much just collected as much TP as I could with as much cubes as I could get and XP. I'm not necessarily sure why, but I realized later on that all the progress that I did here in the demo would basically carry over in the full version, so I guess that worked out for me. So I did as much adventuring as I could, and I found out that I could switch the lead member of the crew at this point to whoever I wanted. So it's particularly useful for situations that require skill of a specific character. For example, with this gate here, I needed to use Zoro. So I was able to switch up and use him, and he would just kind of break the gate, even though technically one could argue that everybody could break this if they wanted to. Also, since Luffy got the cube first, wouldn't he be stronger than everybody at this point? Couldn't just punch it out? But that's neither here or there, I guess. But I collected more and more cubes and snuck up behind the wildlife of this uninhabited island and killed them for XP. Now, I will say one thing that I didn't like is that when Luffy decides to grab onto a piece of, I don't know, something I guess, you can't move your camera while doing that action. So I found that, I don't know, I didn't really like that. I didn't like that at all because my camera feels weird while I'm doing it, and it just felt weird. I don't really know how to explain it. Just felt weird while doing it, I guess. So that was probably my only complaint, was the inability to move my camera while doing certain actions. And that was a demo, and honestly I had a lot of fun with the demo, and I felt really, for God knows what reason, just thrown into the story and wanting to know who this Adio guy is and why certain key characters in the cutscenes were teasing about him basically. And it seems, I guess, like maybe the government's after him. There's a little bit of a teaser there and the sketchiness of Hat Girl Lim. But having this be my first game that I've played, even though it's just a demo, but literally the first game I've played since the end of August back in 2022, I'm glad I did. I had a lot of fun and I enjoyed myself with this, which is really rare for me to say. Like, I genuinely really enjoyed myself playing this game. So what do you guys think? Are you willing to give it a try when it comes out? Like I said, I very much enjoyed my time with this game, even though I do think some things could be improved upon. The cool thing about this is, like I said, this is my first One Piece game ever. Like, I've never played any One Piece games. This is the first one I've played, and secondly, this is the first game that I've played in general since the end of August 2022. So it definitely opened up my eyes to some things. Also, for me being someone that's pretty much changed his point of view with combat, where I'm now more inclined to play games that are like, I guess, action combat or something more freeing, I was really surprised at how much I enjoyed this game's combat. Now, I have played a bunch of turn-based games when I was younger though, and if you played games like Final Fantasy, Warhammer, StarCraft, just to name a few, then this will probably be something of enjoyment if you like that type of combat for you. I will say there was a bit of a nostalgic thing for this for me, and I'll share it with you because I feel like this game doesn't get a lot of credit, but this brought me back to like the late 90s, like early 2000s. I was playing a couple games, and one game that really stood out to me particularly that I remember playing, and I could still remember like the music of when I'm walking around and stuff like that, was Legend of Legaia. I think it was called that, at least. I don't really remember. It's been well over 20 years. But yeah, anyways, I just was really brought back to that time. Obviously not graphically, but I just meant the turn-based, for some reason, it really threw me into that space. But anyways, let me know what you guys think and we'll talk about it in the comments below. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and click that adorable f***ing bell to know when I upload a brand new video. And don't forget to come join my Discord if you want to chat and hang out. Much love, and as always, till next time, friends.